You know, when Miami was losing, I was like, oh, this is frauds exposed weekend, I guess.
Yep.
And then like, it's like, oh shit.
Had the same thought.
And then our game happened, and like, oh no.
Yep.
Here we are, Abe Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports. You know, sports, the fun thing that we talk about. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori is here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
It doesn't matter how I'm doing.
Doesn't matter how she's doing just fine. I'll answer for her. Tonight is Monday, November 11th, 2024. Veterans Day. Big thanks.
Mansplaining day, apparently.
Oh yeah, is it mansplaining
You
day?
just told the people about my own feelings.
I would never ever deign to speak for your feelings, but in terms of your general state of being, I feel comfortable in saying that you're fine.
I don't know. It just doesn't matter.
Not emotionally, psychologically wrecked, emotionally unstable,
Right.
but fucking fine because here we are. Veterans Day, Abe. You enjoy the day off?
Yeah, I went to go see Tom Hanks in that movie here. I know this is not that podcast,
Oh
but
my.
Okay.
spent that.
I tried to go to the bank and I fucking failed because fucking veterans needed to be remembered or whatever.
Veterans is for the living, right? Memorial Day is the dead.
Yes. It's for people who served.
It's a day of celebration and thanks.
But like,
Appreciation.
I hope they're happy that I couldn't make my deposit at the bank.
It's all about Lori tonight here on Cast Iron Balls. Never mind the sacrifice and dedication of our armed services. Otherwise, a good weekend, Abe, besides enjoying the day off?
Yeah. I was watching a lot of football. Not all the good.
I have good news then. We can talk about football tonight. First, though, of course, we need to have you live bet the games. Tonight is Monday night, which means there's a Monday night game happening about an hour from now. We've got the Dolphins on the road at the Los Angeles Rams. The Dolphins are 2-6. The Rams 4-4, I believe. Rams are a very slight home favorite. Although I haven't checked the line movement on that. It was a 1.5 point game when I last saw it. Interesting note here that I saw on Twitter, and after some quick Googling, verified that it was in fact true. So this is not in danger of being fake news.
Yeah.
Or actually, I will say, I'm not sure that this has never happened, but the tweet leads off with, "This has never happened ever." Florida's FBS, FCS, and NFL teams are a combined 0-11 on the same weekend.
See, that feels good.
Florida Atlantic, Florida, Miami, FSU, USF, and UCF all lost. Those are the top-tier FBS teams. The FCS teams, Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman, and Stetson, all lost. And then in the NFL, the Jaguars and the Bucks have already lost. So we're coming into Monday night.
Wow.
A lot of pressure on the Miami Dolphins as they travel cross-country to the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, but Florida International
Did they win?
is 3-6, so
Why isn't FIU in my list here? Did they play? Let's double check that, because that could throw this whole thing into question. I think FIU had the weekend off. Let me double check. FIU did not play this weekend.
Okay.
So the fighting pit bulls were not at issue here. Abe, who you got? Does Miami save all of Florida's collective dignity here and get a win on the road in Los Angeles? Or does Florida, as a state in top-level football, go 0-12 over the course of the long weekend?
That quarterback for the Dolphins who's prone to concussion, he's playing?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Rams. I think that the streak will continue.
Rams.
0-12.
This is a tough loss for the Rams. I mean, this is one that they may look back on and say that was the game that cost us.
I'm all right with that. I hope that you're right. Usually, I'm rooting hard against you being right during these live bets.
I thought you were neutral. I didn't know you were taking a position.
no, he wants you to be wrong. 'cause
I
it's
really
funny.
like it when you're wrong because it's better for the show in terms of content. You were wrong on Thursday. With
Barely wrong. Come on, that was almost right
very
there.
exciting game
Still
between
wrong.
the Bengals and the Ravens. You go to 9-12 at the moment, and with a chance to go 9-13 before we gather again at the end of the week.
By the way, this Lamar Jackson, he's having a perfect Peyton Manning-like regular season, so I'm looking forward to January when it all falls apart. But he's playing tremendous.
Yeah, he's been awesome. I mean, to be fair, Burrow was awesome in that game also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow's great.
Yeah, couldn't get it done, though.
No.
No.
Real quick on that game, another one of those last moments, let's go for two, try to win it and get the fuck out of here kind of games. Is this a situational thing, or do you have a firm rule about what teams should do in those sorts of situations?
I mean, maybe I'm too conservative when it comes to this. My thinking is always nothing unnecessary. Don't do anything unnecessary. And that strikes me as unnecessary.
I mean, this is a game in which Justin Tucker had missed an extra point at one point. So, like, not even the great Hall of Fame-bound Justin Tucker is automatic from that distance.
That's true. That's true. But you think that's what motivated their thinking? Like,
No, certainly not. I'm just saying, as a complicating factor here,
Right.
It's not like it's even the greatest of all time isn't going to get it done every single time. So
That's true.
I don't know. On the road, my feeling is on the road against a team that has staged a rather dramatic comeback, because I think that were the Ravens down in that game by a couple of scores at various points.
It was kind of back and forth. Yeah, I forget how it.
It is a bit back and forth, but on the road against a team that you might not be better than, or at best you're evenly matched against them probably, I feel like you have an opportunity to win a game there. You go ahead and take it. The Steelers were in a similar situation yesterday against the Commanders, not in terms of going for two and getting out of there, but they were 4th and 1 and looked like they were going to line up and go for it. Maybe they were just trying to get the Commanders to jump off sides, but they were 4th and 1 with like less than 2 minutes to go. They were going to have to punt from around midfield, and instead they get the Commanders' defensive lineman to jump across. They get the offsides call, and then they can kneel the game out from there. Now, yeah, it sucks for that Commanders guy, I guess, but also it sucks because Russell Wilson got to like gleefully gloat on his way off the field and do a little
Yeah, he was so happy.
the little Gatorade dance that he does afterwards. Like, ooh, I got him. I got that guy. Did you guys see? I did this thing. I did this awesome thing, and that guy did this other thing. It is not as cool, and I'm cooler than him now, is the face that Russell Wilson was making.
It almost seemed like it was like his idea. Like, coach, let's give it a go. Like, instead of like just punting for it, let's just maybe somebody will jump offside.
Right.
Maybe.
Whereas we know Mike Tomlin is obviously like, well, just go out there and punt the ball. What are you talking about, Russell? And Russ is like, no, I'm dangerous. I want to get out there and do this cool thing. I have a hard count. Have you ever heard of a hard count, coach? Let me do the hard count. That's my Russell Wilson.
He's getting old to have such a glee.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gleeful anymore. I think he's jaded.
But maybe all this bouncing around different teams, he's like, actually, like on a winning team, like he's doing well. Like maybe he's back to being happy.
Yeah, I do like watching. Even though Jaden Daniels has his exciting player, he's the hot new shit in the National Football League. I like it when the Commanders lose. I'm still. Maybe that's cruel, given how bad this franchise has been.
It's also cute considering you're a Giants
much
fan.
of the last 20 years. Well, especially now, as a Giants fan, we watched some of that Sunday morning game, including the end where they very excitingly came back and tied it in overtime, or tied it to force overtime. And then they get the ball first. And Calvin, like, as I went to the other room to make a second cup of coffee, and Calvin's like, they're going to get the ball. I was like, okay, cool. And I knew as soon as he said that things weren't going to go well. And like 2 plays later, I think the rookie running back fumbles the ball, and that's the game, more or less.
A positive development was a bad omen. They won the coin toss.
And that's how it goes with Daniel Jones and the G-men at this point.
Yeah.
That motherfucker's got a stupid face.
Oh, he's got a stupid everything.
I mean, he's like.
Wasn't that why he got drafted? He had a Eli, they don't have the same face, but Eli had a stupid face also.
But Eli's face is not like. I mean, you don't want to talk about somebody,
You did with Daniel Jones. Now it's your precious Eli.
You always talk about, what are you talking about? Just say it.
Daniel Jones's eyes are way too close together for me to believe that he could be a reliable quarterback. Like, this is like
Quarterbacks have close together eyes.
no, but like too much close together. I don't think that he can actually see like binocular vision in the way that most of the rest of us can. I think that needs to be corrected in some way. Perhaps he needs a sport goggle that directs the vision slightly out, since he is more naturally sort of narrowly focused on everything, it would seem to me. It's probably too late.
Yeah, I mean, he made it to the big leagues with this eye.
Yeah, can you imagine if he had normal set eyes in his dome instead of that weird, like the doctor grabbed him with the forceps trying to pull him on out of the mom's birth canal there, and he slipped and squoze the front of the skull together a little bit too much, and now the eyes are doing what they're doing?
Right.
Is the picture of him when they put the quarterback comparisons up?
It's real bad.
It's such a bad photo. I'll see if I can find one to post in the show note. But like, it's like, I imagine a photographer being like, let's take a couple more, and Danny Dimes looks over at the photo there. He's like, no, that's just me. That's what I look like. There's nothing to this. That's the best we're gonna get here.
Yeah.
The eyes are too close. My mouth does weird stuff. It's fine. Anyway, that's the Giants.
All right, on to the sad stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about the week in college football. First and foremost, we can start with the rather disappointing result from Oxford, in which the University of Georgia Bulldogs travel to Ole Miss and find themselves getting their asses kicked, basically, from 3 minutes into the game. Like, if you ignore the first 3 minutes, it was a pretty thorough ass kicking by the Ole Miss Rebels. Thoughts on this game, Abe, off the top?
You know, the game started promising. You know, there was a pick, touchdown. Once that freshman, the new kid came in and he drove the team down the field and scored, like, okay, let's bring back that Dart fella. Like, enough with this new kid. Like, we don't have any tape on him.
Yeah, Austin Simmons comes in, goes 5 for 6, drives him right down the field, and scores a touchdown.
But then Dart is like, fuck that. I want in. You know, I think he went to the locker room briefly and he came back. And I was thinking, well, maybe we'll go back to the beginning of the game. You know, he'll start sucking, maybe another turnover. But nope, it was just a shellacking. Like,
no, just about the only pressure that we got on that guy all day was that first drive where they go 3 and out, or three and a turnover with an injury to the ankle. I watched this game the first quarter plus, like almost the first half. I had to watch on my phone while I was watching my son's soccer game. It felt good right off the bat. And it's like, oh, shit, like, we're going to just fucking whip their asses, aren't we? Like, this is going to be an embarrassment for Lance Kiffin and the Rebs. And instead it was the complete opposite of that. Beck was sort of better than he's been, I guess, all things considered.
He didn't have a chance.
But he didn't have much of a chance to fuck anything up because they were on him so quickly. The thing that I don't understand with this team, and maybe it is just a function of like Kirby picks his spots in terms of getting them out there hungry. But like that game against Texas, I still have not seen a better half of football this season than the half of football that our defense played against Texas. You can sort of argue that Alabama similarly had as good like a quarter against us, and then also looked real good against LSU this weekend, and Oregon certainly has looked good. Ohio State was good, but in terms of like facing top level competition and just looking awesome, no 30 minutes of football has been better than what I saw our defense do against Texas in the first half. And I have no idea where that team is. Like, where is the front seven that just destroyed the Texas offensive line? And we didn't see it at all. Besides that first drive in which Dart throws the pick and gets hurt, like, we just did not see our front seven cause anywhere near the amount of chaos that they needed to cause, especially if our secondary is going to be leaving dudes wide open across the middle over and over again.
I said multiple times, I don't know football, but what is happening? Like, why? It's like their receivers were saying, they were playing hide and seek, and the secondary was like closing their eyes and counting to 10. Like, it was playing hide and seek, and then they open it. It's like, oh, I guess I'll go find you now. Like, why are they so open? I don't know how it works. I actually want to know how they got so open so many times.
And what's crazy is that if not for, I think it was like, they kept talking about it. I think they had 8 20-plus yard plays. Maybe I lost track at some point.
It was a lot.
but it was at least 8 plays of 20 yards or more. And despite that fact, they didn't make it in the end zone very much.
Yeah.
They only scored 2 touchdowns. They kicked 5 field goals. Like this is a game that easily, if the defense had been more break and less bend, could have been fucking 55-10 instead
Could have
of
been like the
instead of
LSU
28-10. But at the same time, if you take away the goofy, constantly wide open 20-yard plays, which is ridiculous to take away, but it's hard for me to reconcile 10 20-yard explosive plays and the fact that we kept them out of the goddamn end zone so frequently, right? Like,
Right.
how
Yeah.
do those two things go together? Why were we so bad in the middle of the field, allowing them to drive down into field goal range over and over again, and then sort of stand up straight and keep them out of the end zone? I don't understand why that is. So you could say, yes, this could have been 55-10, but also if you just turn it around in the other direction, you can say, well, shit, like this maybe should have been only 17-10 or something like that.
Right.
If the
Well,
defense doesn't give up so many
They
explosive
spotted
plays.
us 7 points in
Right,
the
they
beginning.
handed us 7 points right on that opening drive. And all of this is fucking academic because it doesn't matter what their offense did if our offense is going to be as incredibly unproductive as it was, because their defensive line hassled Beck the entire time. We couldn't run block. We couldn't pass block. We couldn't do shit offensively. And I have no idea what the reason is besides just blaming it on the offensive line, because I can't be mad at Carson Beck. He wasn't that bad this
He wasn't
this
that
time
good
around.
either, but he wasn't the primary reason. I mean, the secondary was awful. The offensive line was awful. Beck didn't really overcome the bad O-line. And
We
there
didn't
are
lose this game because of Carson
Right,
Beck, though.
right. But also, like, there aren't any, like, go-to guys. Like, there's, I know it's kind of hard to replicate.
That's what they were saying the whole offseason.
It's kind of hard to replicate a Brock Bowers kind of player who's doing great in the NFL, by the way.
And Ladd McConkey,
Yeah.
who's like an undersized guy who I thought was going to be, like, the fact that he got drafted where he got drafted shocked me. The fact that he's been as productive as he's been in the NFL legitimately shocks me. Like, I did not think that this was a next level kind of player. He's undersized. He's fast, but he's not like game breaking fast.
Right.
He's quick.
He just works real hard. Have you seen his skin color?
Yeah, I think it's not that. It's not the skin color. But like every now and then, like a Julian Edelman arises, right? Like every now and then, there's
It's not
just
the
a
skin
guy
color. And you
who
bring
can
up-
who can run routes and find
Yeah.
and then also finds himself open a lot for whatever reason.
Right.
Maybe it's because he's underestimated. Maybe he's just always in the right spot, and that makes quarterbacks feel comfortable with him. Who knows what it is? But we absolutely do not have that on this team right now. Like, the closest you can say is Dylan Bell, and Dylan Bell's not always there. The other one, Dominic Lovett is the closest we have to, like, oh yeah, we're gonna find him. Like, his worst case scenario, we're gonna find him. And like, even he hasn't been that great. Like, I think he had a drop. There were a couple of other pretty bad drops on Saturday night, and yeah, there's just nobody. Lawson Lucky has at least been better than Oscar Delp has, I guess you can say. But the weaponry doesn't matter if you can't get anything going on in the running game. And the fact that Etienne and my boy Nate Frazier couldn't seem to get anything meaningful going, and then Frazier puts the ball on the ground at least once. Twice? Did Frazier fumble the ball twice?
Twice.
On Saturday? And like, it doesn't matter. You can't, if you don't have George Pickens or an AJ Green out there who's just a fucking freak, you could have a superior weapons on the outside, but if you're not able to have a meaningful threat with the running game, then you're not going to be able to work off play action, which this offense absolutely relies upon when it's going right.
It's also troubling that this poor performance came against like a not that great Ole Miss team. It's not like, and I don't know what
That's
the last.
not what I'm hearing.
So are they actually a better team than what we gave them credit for? Because when was the last time Georgia's played this poorly against a team not named Alabama? It's been a while.
It was a long time ago, but all I heard all week was that Lane Kiffin did what he did in the portal in the offseason specifically for this game.
Right, because they lost pretty
They're
badly last
actually
year.
really good, and they fucked up a couple. They fucked up against Kentucky, so did we. Who else did they lose to? LSU. Like, they're actually
Right. They should have beaten
pretty
LSU,
good.
and they lost a stupid game that they should have never been It should have never been a contest against Kentucky, and they had a bad game or whatever. But yeah, and they should have beaten LSU, and they sort of lanced it. And it was a Lane Kiffin special to lose that game against LSU. So yeah, maybe they are better than we've given them credit for, and certainly, anytime you have a team that spent the entire offseason thinking about their opportunity to get you next time, and you didn't do that, right? It was more of a like, what do you mean? We're just going to go to Oxford and play Ole Miss. It's not that big a deal. Like, it's
Right.
it's just a football game. Whereas they've been thinking about it this entire time, and all they care about for the whole season is winning this game, and they circle it, and it's like, this is the one we've got to get. This is the team that we're aiming for because they're the best. Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like I said, maybe it's just Kirby picks his spots in terms of when to unleash the we've got to have it, we've got to come out hungry kind of mentality. And obviously that is the mentality that they're going to have this weekend when Tennessee comes to town.
Which I don't think takes much because everybody hates Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
And we opened up as a 10.5 point favorite, which very quickly goes to 8.5 and then starts moving back in the other direction again. So Vegas thinks that we're going to handle this game. And it is absolutely an elimination game
Nico
at this point.
is questionable, not officially, but questionable in an abstract way, where like we don't know about his injury situation.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
We'll see.
Ole Miss, this was an elimination game for them, and they played pretty well. You know, going into the Texas game, I was very confident that Texas was going to beat Georgia. And Bob, you were thinking, oh no, this is the kind of game that Georgia is going to play well in. And that first half was amazing. And then I was like, okay, maybe I was wrong about this Georgia team. And then I'm watching them play like shit against Ole Miss, and now I'm like, wait a minute, was I not wrong about this team? And now going forward, I don't care what Vegas says. I have like no confidence in this team. I don't know what kind of team is going to show up against Tennessee and against Georgia Tech.
But
in a
you
few
can
weeks.
say that about literally every
But
team
there was a
this
while, there
season.
was a few years where like they had like Georgia.
No,
had,
not every Georgia team. Every
Right.
team this season.
yeah, this has been a very
This has
chaotic.
been-
Yeah,
It's just crazy now, and I love it.
yeah. It's. I mean,
I don't want to get too far ahead of things, but I had the thought earlier today that this is a Georgia team that loses to Georgia Tech. Like if you go,
I said that earlier this year.
I know, but if you look at like the fucking pulse of history, like the sort of nonsense, like 30,000 foot view, like how often do we lose to Georgia Tech? Not very often.
Years like
Right.
this.
But in years like this, you could lose to Georgia, like and because it's a combination of, if we beat Tennessee, we're going to handle UMass. Obviously, it doesn't matter what happens in the UMass game, basically. But then you have Georgia Tech, and it's like, is it an elimination game for Georgia?
Kind of.
Yes,
It would
kind
be,
of,
yeah.
maybe, but also maybe not. And if we're like a cuspy playoff team, will they have the opportunity to say we kept Georgia out of the
Yes.
playoff?
Yes.
Even if it's sort of the case that maybe we weren't going, like if it was a coin flip situation of
Yep.
us making the playoff anyway at that point.
Yeah.
That's the sort of game that Georgia Tech
Yep.
would beat us in.
And I mean, if you think about it, not to look ahead beyond Tennessee, but like beating Tennessee would get you in the top 10, like 8th or 9th or whatever, right? And then like it doesn't matter what happened against UMass, but like you're 8th or 9th, and then you lose to Georgia Tech, that's gonna knock you out. You're gonna
you're
be
done.
outside, you know. So like you can't lose that game. That would suck
Yeah.
if Georgia Tech
Yeah.
eliminated Georgia.
I don't know what part of this team you're saying you don't know where the playmakers are. Coming into this game and after the Texas game, I would have said this is a team whose identity is in the defensive front seven. Like there's not a lot going on offense that you can point to, but at least we have that defensive front seven. And I don't know that you can point to that anymore either. They got absolutely, I mean, they could not get to Dart, and the secondary could not back them up in terms of not letting dudes get fucking just 10 yards clear of the nearest defender. So, like, I don't know what you can point to when you look at this team and you say, that is the unit that fucking matters. Like, and Kirby is like, well, we've got the punt, and we've got Peyton Woodring, right? We've got the punter, and we've got
Yeah.
our kicker. It's like, yeah, fuck, man. Like, we're supposed to be one of the 5 best, at the worst, 5 best programs in the country, right? And we can't point to one unit that's like, that's our superior unit. That's the thing that's going to get it done for us week in and week out. It's very weird, and I don't know who they can. I mean, obviously we've lost some coaches, and that's the problem with success. Is you have a great deal of success and you start losing coaches. And what's his name? The defensive coordinator, Schumann, is no Oregon coach, right? He's no
Dan Lanning,
Dan Lanning, trailer park
bank robber.
bank robber enthusiast, and The offensive line situation is a disaster. I don't know what you can do about that. Like, hopefully it just moves in cycles or what have you.
Well, and that's they were talking about it. I forget where. Probably the position that has been most equalized and gain the most parity from transfer portal stuff is offensive line, because we used to have a stable of giant dudes, and now those giant dudes are playing somewhere else and starting. And like that's true for all of the offensive lines, not just us.
The only thing that I downplayed coming into this game was just how good Ole Miss's defense was, and particularly their ability to get to the quarterback. I knew they were leading the country in sacks. I didn't realize it was going to be 5 sacks and 9 tackles for losses, right? Like, you cannot give up 5 sacks and almost 10 tackles in the backfield against anybody and expect to win a game. And it was just domination. And then the fucking bums over there rush the field with 16 seconds still on the clock because they're idiots and they don't know what to do with their good fortune. And they've now been fined not just the customary $250,000 or $100,000.
Did they get fined twice?
For the first offense, they got fined $350,000.
Wow.
I think they got fined twice for two rushings of the field.
Okay, well, that'll pay for like one guy.
Everybody is rushing the field now. You know, when this first happened
Everybody's
a few weeks
throwing
ago,
trash on the field too.
a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I think we were talking about like how certain teams would not do it because it's above them. Like if it's like if Tennessee goes up like 21-0 and Georgia mounts a comeback, I would not be surprised if the Georgia fans rush the field. It seems like everybody's getting in on this action.
I would not be surprised. I would be disappointed.
It would be awful. You can't rush the field on someone ranked below you.
Right, but like in game, like people are like, oh shit, I can't believe we came back and won. I don't think there's any team now that wouldn't just rush the field. It seems like kids are just like, following the trend and they'll just rush
it's just like the trash thing.
Right.
It's the same thing. They have the permission to do it now. It's practically encouraged. So,
and it's not like they're
gonna do what they
like,
want to do.
That fine thing is almost like encouraging people to behave like shitheads, like because they're not going to pay it. Like, who cares?
No, the only thing to do is to stop selling alcohol. If the punishment is you are going to lose the ability to have alcohol in your stadium, that is a huge incentive for the school to make sure that it doesn't happen, and it can also be a pretty strong incentive for the people, the fans in the stadium, who don't want to lose that privilege after we haven't had it for such a long time until the last few years.
If enough people want to rush the field, there's not disincentive strong enough, right, to prevent that from happening. So, like, just eat the cost and just move on.
This is like the first time that Lance Kiffin has beaten a top 5 team. I think or maybe it's the second now. And it's the first. I think they said it's the first time Ole Miss had ever beat a top 5 team at home.
Wow.
Quite a win for their program. And yeah, they are in a pretty good spot to make it into the playoff at this point. This is the end of the worst of their schedule. They have like the Egg Bowl left. I forget who else they have to play. I think they have a bye. Yeah, so they have a bye this weekend, and then they play Florida, and then they have the Egg Bowl. They have Mississippi State after that at home. So they're going to be just fine. They're going to be a 2-loss team. There is a very likely scenario actually where there are like half a dozen 2-loss teams or even 8 2-loss SEC teams,
right?
Who then they have to figure out what the tiebreaker situation is, and I refuse to pretend.
Yeah,
to be able to
you just
game
have the
that out.
computer
You just have
do
to
it.
wait.
Yeah, and also
the
at that
computers
point,
do it.
It's kind of hard to complain if you're left out. You basically had it in your control, and then now you don't have control of it. And if you lose, you lose.
I mean, obviously, I want Georgia to win out because that all but guarantees you a playoff spot and probably that number 5. If we can win out and not have to play for the SEC championship, like as much as I harp and go on about how important it is to win SEC championships.
No, you were wrong about that, and you're right now.
No, I was not wrong about it being important and good and cool to win the SEC. But in this scenario, situationally, it makes a great deal of sense for Georgia to be on the outside looking in terms of what follows. Because if you win out, you've beat Tennessee. Your worst loss is this Ole Miss loss.
This one,
and another loss to Alabama, who looks all but guaranteed to make the playoff at this point now themselves. Then you're probably in a situation where you're that 5 seed. which is
Well,
the
the
seed that
SEC championship loser might be the five seed.
maybe not necessarily.
We don't know. It's there's so much happens
because
between
the
now
Big
and then.
Ten is going to have 3 teams in the top 5 in all likelihood, unless Indiana has to play Ohio State. But they're going to be like 1, 2, and 3 in the polls when that all goes down? So like, will they drop beyond the 4th or 5th best SEC team? Who knows? Right. I kind of doubt it. So I think there's a good shot that the first team out of the SEC championship game ends up with that number 5 spot, especially if it's Georgia, because we will have such a strong resume.
Yeah, our schedule is
our schedule's out of fucking control. So we get that 5 spot. We play the 12 at home. Like, that's a lot of fucking fun to be able to do that.
Yeah.
At this point, I will be happy for Georgia to just make the playoff, and I will not expect much. And I think that if we were to win all of it, it would be not the right way for things to go.
What do you mean?
We're not very good.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if nobody else is very good either.
I know, but whatever. Talk about other games, and then let's go.
All right. The other game to talk about right off the bat is Miami and Georgia Tech.
It was so fun.
Georgia Tech, as predicted by me, by the way, I felt good about Georgia Tech keeping that close. I did not call for them to be outright winners.
You should. Missed opportunity for me.
Like a fucking coward.
Yeah.
But I had a feeling that Miami was due to pay the piper here, and they did. Cam Ward once again was a combination of the GOAT and the GOAT. He was playing hero ball, but also making silly mistakes. Ultimately, they turned the ball over. They had a chance at the end of that game to drive the ball down the field and possibly win it, but they have a turnover deep in Tech's territory, and that basically seals the deal. I don't want to hear anymore about how the ACC should get 2 teams in if Miami loses.
Won't.
If Miami loses the ACC championship game, because they're not that good, and Clemson is not that good. SMU might be the class of the conference this year of all the teams, and I'm looking forward to watching SMU dismantle Miami, or even not just dismantle them, but like that's going to be a ridiculous
Is that happening
game.
in real? Is that happening?
They won't play unless they're in the
Okay.
in the championship game. But that was a fun one down there at historic Mark Richt Field at Bobby Dodd.
Were you surprised that I know you picked Alabama, but were you surprised at how badly LSU played?
Oh, of course. I had a good feeling that Alabama was going to win that game. There's a stat. I think they were 5-1 going into this game in their last 6 at LSU at night, which you have to go back a little ways, obviously. I mean, they go there every other year, but in the last 15 or 20 years or whatever, during night games at LSU, Alabama has been very, very good, which doesn't mean anything. Like, it's not at all the same kids. It doesn't officially mean anything, obviously. But I was surprised by the degree to which LSU just got absolutely stomped. That was not what I was expecting. As much as I don't like or trust Brian Kelly, I thought that the game would at least be entertaining, and it wasn't. It wasn't even worth watching, really.
Yeah.
Like I kept my phone plugged in on my bedside table all night instead of in my hand, because usually as I'm watching football, I'm also just furiously texting my fellow football fans in the various group chats, and I ignored all of that. I was intent on being present and in the moment and watching the games, and that game was so bad that I instead was fixing strands of Christmas lights.
Yeah, we started decorating for Christmas.
Individually going through 100-foot-long strands of Christmas lights, trying to find the bum bulb.
75 feet long, I think.
And figuring that out, because the game was just not even worth paying close attention to.
Milroe looked like he was going up against Georgia's defense. Like, he looked
Holy shit,
so
did he
good.
ever.
And they
He
had
was so good.
They had so many LSU alums at the game. Like, they were there the whole day. They were there at college game day. Like, all day. Imagine being an LSU fan. You're like, oh, boy, things are looking good. At least it'll be a close game. You're probably, like, drunk by the time the game starts. And then, like, holy shit, this game is already over. Like, just
They
a
all
total
left.
dud.
I've never seen that stadium that empty.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter, the announcers were trying to be like, yeah, some of the fans have left for sure. Like, I think it might be a quarter empty. And I'm looking at it, and it's like, it might be a quarter full, guys. Like, this place is fucking gone. The only people who are left are Alabama people. Jalen Milroe's entire career highlights package is just Georgia, LSU, and one throw against Auburn. You
Yeah.
just take his games against Georgia and his games against LSU, and that one throw at the end of last year's
Fourth and forever.
Auburn game.
Yeah.
And like that's his entire career highlights package, and it's an awesome career highlights package.
Yeah.
To his credit.
Yeah, because not like against bad teams. They're going up. He's beating pretty decent teams and Auburn.
Right.
He's got to have been hurt the last month.
Oh, I don't know. He's just not. He's been so reliably not that good. Like you watch the first month of last season, not hurt, also not that good, and you watch the last month of Alabama football, not hurt, not that good.
This fucking Alabama team will never die. It's always
Seriously,
hanging around.
that could have been it if they had just laid an egg against LSU. If LSU could just win a night game in Death Valley to secure a playoff spot, in all likelihood, is what LSU would have done there. Fuck Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly is a perfectly mediocre coach. Also, they can never fire Brian Kelly. And it's not because of the contract. It's not because of the buyout. It's not for any reason besides the fact that in this era of college football, if you are a guaranteed 9-10 win coach every single season, then you have a 50-50 shot of making the playoff every single season, and that's all that matters. And with the increased amount of parity, where there's going to be 30 fucking teams that are all about the same and maybe one or two really good teams who you're like, those are the ones with the real chance to win, then you're in the game, right? And it's you make it into the playoffs, and it's a roll of the dice from there, because who knows what happens. They'll never get rid of Brian Kelly. And if they do, look, like, who are you going to bring in? Who's going to give you a better shot than a 50-50 chance at making the playoffs every season? And there's nobody. Indiana barely survives against Michigan. If Michigan had any sort of an offense, then Indiana would not have survived in all likelihood. But you got to win the one that you're in, and this is the one that they were in. And so Indiana becomes a 10-win team, I think, for the first time in program history.
Ever. Yeah.
7-0 in the Big Ten, and sets up a big game between, in 2 weeks, Indiana and Ohio State, which should be a fun one. Also, we had Tennessee handle Mississippi State, though not quite by the big number that they were favored by. Penn State owns Washington at home in a whiteout that nobody watched because it was on Peacock. And then Texas also thoroughly dismantled Florida. Billy Napier gets the dreaded vote of confidence and then goes out there and gets humiliated by the Texas Longhorns.
The other game I noticed was the Gamecocks, the Vanderbilt game. That was not particularly close. So much for the Vanderbilt run that they had. They got their ass
That's
kicked.
too bad.
Well,
I was like, is South Carolina good?
They're
I
getting.
guess so.
That's what I was saying. They've
I
gotten
know.
better every game.
They've improved every game. Georgia has not improved one iota. Like you can, it's bizarre. I firmly believe Kirby Smart is one of, if not the actual best coach in the country. Right, like one or two. Or
Yeah, he's up
like
there.
I don't know. I wouldn't trade him for anybody. Not a fucking chance. This team has not gotten better at any point. We looked pretty good against Clemson. And then it's just been a series of essentially playing to the level of your opponent and then getting fucking throttled by Ole Miss. I don't know what that is. Whereas fucking Shan Beamer,
Reamer, apparently, according to Lee Corso. Coach Reamer.
Coach Reamer, has got that Gamecocks team playing fucking awesome and getting better every single week.
They had a comfortable loss to Ole Miss, but it was 3-point loss to LSU, 2-point loss to Alabama.
Right, should have beaten LSU,
Yeah.
and
Should
then
probably have beaten
probably
Alabama.
should have beaten Alabama. And we'd be talking about South Carolina with one loss, in all likelihood, on the easy street to the SEC championship game.
Yeah, they don't have
and the
anybody.
playoffs, certainly.
Mizzou and then Clemson. They don't really have anybody the rest of the way.
Well, you never know with Clemson. It's a
You never know
rivalry
with
game.
anybody. Mizzou and then Clemson. It's just who knows.
Oregon handled Maryland, no problem. Ohio State obviously handled one of the worst teams in college football in Purdue with no problem. BYU, Utah got a bunch of talk because it was a close game, and then the Utah athletic director in the post game goes to he doesn't usually talk to the press afterwards, but he goes down to the press room and sits down and says he flat out says this game was stolen from us. The referees were unprofessional, and they chose to give this game to BYU. I don't know what he thinks the officials or the Big 12 get out of keeping BYU undefeated. Like, I don't know what the conspiracy is in his mind. Why? Also, if your team only scores points in one of the four quarters, I don't know what you can complain about exactly. They were held scoreless in the first, the third, and the fourth quarter, scoring 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. But there's only so much whining and bitching that you can do when you don't score any points in the second half.
According to ESPN's Predictometer, with a minute and 35 seconds left to go in the game, Utah had a 99.7% chance to win. They basically had it won. You know, you always round up to 100, and they didn't. So maybe that's what got him upset. I did not actually catch the game. I caught him complaining afterwards. I didn't catch the game.
It was
like,
night.
Yeah.
But 99.7 is pretty good chance that you're going to win the game.
Yeah. I wonder if that 99.7 was when they had not yet thrown because it appeared to be over because there was a sack. Like the guy got sacked and it was going to be a turnover on downs. And then somebody saw a penalty flag on the ground. And it's like, wait, there's a penalty. And it was on a defensive holding and they got to continue the drive. And by the way,
thrown more trash.
The thing that he was complaining about, the defensive holding, he said shouldn't have been a defensive holding. If you watch the replay, it sure looked to me like defensive holding, and it was probably a good call. Now, is it one of those things that is sort of 50-50 at the end of a game? It's like, are they going to call it or aren't they going to call it? And could you get too upset if they hadn't?
Yeah.
Probably not. You couldn't get too upset if there's just a little bit of a hold on a player that wasn't necessarily going to be involved in the play anyway. But it was a foul. And I'm sorry. If there's a foul, they should call the foul. So stop complaining, you fucking baby. I know President Jimmy Carter complained about grown-ass men who don't take accountability for themselves in last week's presidential lock of the week from Plains. But there's more of this going on now than ever before, of grown men just whining about outcomes that they don't care about.
I really think it's like this performative thing for the fans. Like,
to show like they
the
care.
fans are pissed. Like, well, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Like, well, I'll talk to the manager. I'll go talk to the manager.
Speaking of the Big 12, Colorado wins fairly handily after going down 13-0 against Texas Tech. That was a game that looked like it was going to be a problem for Colorado, but they scored a ton of points. They end up winning 41-27 after being held scoreless in the first quarter, and they appear to be well on their way to a clash with BYU in the Big 12 championship game.
That'll be fun.
Which should be fun, and one wonders if they run the table, they'll be a 2-loss team with 1 loss in the Big 12. BYU runs the table; they'll be undefeated going into the Big 12 championship game. Does the Big 12 get into the playoffs if Colorado wins? And if Colorado loses, I don't know how you can make the argument that a 3-loss Colorado belongs in the playoff. The only argument is one for ratings, right? It's we want Deion Sanders and the Colorado program in our playoff because it will be good for television. But if they win as a 2-loss team and they're in, I don't know how you can keep BYU out if they've gone undefeated this entire season. Hardly seems fair.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, I was watching the Georgia Ole Miss game at the usual watering hole, and just about most of the TVs had the Ole Miss Georgia game on. And at some point, one of the bartenders came to the people in my section. They're like, "Is it okay if we use one of these TVs to watch the Colorado game?" Somebody requested the Colorado game. So I guess people must be into this team for whatever reason. I guess when it was closer than what it ended up being.
You've got Shedeur Sanders, who's a fun quarterback to watch, and he's a good
Travis Hunter
prospect at the next level, conceivably. And then you've also got, maybe the guy who should win the Heisman this year, and Travis Hunter. I don't watch a ton of Colorado football. I've kept it on when it's been on. We usually put it in a quad box somewhere.
It's also late so much of the time.
Maybe this is just this is a stupid bias against wide receivers and defensive backs in general. I know that he's awesome. I prefer, like, if I'm picking between the Boise State running back Gianti, who's having like just an insane season stats wise, like 200 fucking yards a game. He's got 20-something touchdowns. I like that guy for Heisman more than I like Travis Hunter, even if I recognize that Travis Hunter is probably the more impressive athlete. Like, I want to give it to the guy who, like, Boise State is a team that would be 6-6 this season, if not for their
that's
incredible
why the
fucking
Heisman
running
is
back.
so, like, it's like the big one, because you don't just take into account, they have the individual position awards for the positions, and then the Heisman is just, ooh.
Yeah.
Feelings and stories.
All right, NFL-wise, the Chiefs are trying to lose a game, and they can't fucking do it.
They have had so many games where they don't look that great, and they're still undefeated somehow. Just
9-0.
yeah.
9-0. They had a 35-yard field goal or something for the Broncos to win this game as time expired, and they blocked it. The chances of blocking a less than 40-yard field goal are quite small in the NFL. But they managed to do it. This feels like it's the third or fourth time that they've pulled a game out this season by the absolute skin of their teeth. Speaking of the skin of your teeth, the Falcons lose to the wretched Saints somehow. I didn't see any bit of this game, but only scoring 17 points against this bad Saints team is not good. I don't know what's going on down there. It's time for Michael Penix. Having not seen even a single play of Sunday's game, I say it's time for Michael Penix.
Division games are weird that way. I mean, like the Ravens, which are a good team, against the Browns, they lost. Against the Bengals, they almost lost. It's just sometimes you play a team enough that it'll be close regardless of how bad the other team is. That's the only explanation I have for that. I caught the Sunday night game. I don't recall the last time a quarterback threw for 5 picks. And I know these weren't like your traditional just bad picks. One was like at halftime. 2 of them were like tipped. But like 5 picks, and you still somehow win.
Jared Goff threw 5. I want to reiterate this. Threw 5 interceptions, and his team won the game.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
All you have to do, apparently, is hold the other team scoreless in the second half. Again, the Texans thing. I mean, you get all those turnovers, you think you're going to win a goddamn game, but if you don't score any points in the second half, things aren't going to go well for you in all likelihood.
Are you into the goofy uniforms? Like the Texans had some.
I thought that was awful.
Those looked weird.
Those sucked. First of all, it's one thing for like. They still calling it Color Rush?
That's what I call them. I don't know if they changed the format.
I know that the branding on it when they first introduced it was they were going to do Color Rush uniforms on like Thursday nights, I think.
Pajamas.
And it just looks like Mighty Morphin Power Ranger
That Holy War,
Halloween costumes.
by the way, the BYU-Utah game, it took me a while to figure out what looked so weird about it. And what it is it looked like they were wearing the same uniforms in different colors.
Oh, I see.
Like some of them were all blue, and like the stripes were the same. Like it looked like this was a weird scrimmage. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, I did not care for. They look like Texas Tech out there, I think is what Lori said.
They look kind of like a college team, yeah.
Yeah. No, did not like it. I think Jared Goff is a thoroughly mediocre NFL quarterback. And I think that's reinforced by the fact that he threw 5 picks
again
the other day.
These were not all his do. One was just like a throwaway. Like, I mean, yes, it's hard to explain away 5 picks, but like it's like these things happen.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because it does. You need to have the mindset of, have I thrown 4 interceptions today? You goddamn right I have. Am I going to keep throwing interceptions? You know what? I just might. There's number 5, in fact. But you know what I'm going to do after I've thrown 5 interceptions? I'm going to keep fucking slinging it.
What else are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep fucking slinging it because you need to have Stetson Bennett retard mentality, where it's like it doesn't matter what has happened before. I am the reason that this team is awesome, even though I suck, and I'm going to win this goddamn game. And like that's like Jared
Stetson Bennett mentality is we are not losing this game because of me.
Yeah, it also the memory of a fucking goldfish and the confidence of some big scary fish. I don't have a good analogy there, but it's the memory of a goldfish combined with the absolute authority of a much larger and better fish.
Boy, do I miss Stetson Bennett these days. I was shitting on him all those years, but
I miss him too. I've missed him forever.
I don't miss Stetson Bennett at all, to be perfectly honest with you.
Get
I
this
still
bum
think
back
Carson
out of
Beck's
the
a
way.
better quarterback.
Oh, show me this fucking useless bum. And I'm blaming like the running backs for the losing. This guy's a loser.
I watched a good bit of the Eagles-Cowboys game, not because it was an entertaining game, but because the Cowboys, every time I looked up, the Cowboys were turning the ball over again, and it was a joy to watch. They just were fumbling all over the place. They brought in that quarterback that they got from the 49ers a couple of years ago, and he sucked too.
Oh, the guy that they picked with the top 3 overall a couple years ago?
Cooper Rush and Trey Lance was the guy that they brought in.
Yeah.
Lance goes 4 for 6 and throws a pick because if you were wearing the Cowboys uniform on Sunday, you were going to turn the ball over eventually. And that was entertaining. Not that I loved watching the Eagles win, but never bad when the Cowboys are losing big at home. And then also the Jets just got absolutely hammered.
Yes.
And Aaron Rodgers is done. I think we can officially say now that Aaron Rodgers is not going to lead the Jets to anything this year, and in all likelihood, certainly not moving forward.
Maybe he can just retire and get like an ambassadorship, like snag one from the incoming administration. Do something else.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, get in with the Trump people.
Yeah, good. I'm sure Woody Johnson will want one. What did he have last time? Like Ireland or what? Say has
he's a bit of a health enthusiast himself, right? Like a naturopath of some sort.
RFK's lane.
Yeah, he needs to get in on the RFK thing, and maybe he can get appointed as like
the vaccine denier, like not letting people get them.
Put RFK in charge of the
Office
NHS and put Aaron Rodgers in charge of the CDC and go from there.
But in any event, you don't think you think this is it for him? This is the last NFL season?
I don't know. What is he? Is he signed through next year? What's his contract situation?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But like, even if he had something coming up, I mean, they'll have a pick me up game against the Colts this weekend. But like, this season is a wash. Just end your career. You're not going to be better next year. You're going to be 1 year older.
I don't know. He's probably getting paid $40 million a year or something, right? He's not. I mean, they could cut him, but like
he's not hurting for money.
But these quarterbacks don't know what else to do with themselves.
Yeah.
Especially if the one option is to get paid $40 million a year to be on a bad football team.
I hate my job, and I would totally do it for that much.
Yes.
Let's see. 2024, $38 million. Sorry, I overestimated here.
Boy.
His 2025 year, he will be paid $23 million. No, that's the cap hit. He'll be paid $49 million. No, that's dead cap. God damn, what's the salary, you piece of shit?
Complicated.
It is. It's complicated. I don't know.
I don't care, though.
I don't care
move
either.
along.
He's signed through the 2026 season, according to this.
Whew.
And who are you going to draft? Who's going to be like, yeah, that's the guy of the future?
I know.
Just keep running Aaron Rodgers out there, Jets. It'll be fun for me anyway.
I haven't seen the latest mock drafts for this upcoming NFL draft, but like Carson Beck has lost.
I would imagine
few
that
spots,
he's not going to be, based on what we've seen, unless he finishes strong, like the offense figures this shit out. Like he's certainly not a. Like I legitimately assumed that he was a top 10 pick at the start of the season.
Great. That was the grade he was given. Like it's somewhere in the top 10, 15 at the most.
Well, who knows with the way NFL people do things?
Right.
They look at such weird little things.
And he still has the same physical tools, right? I mean, if like an Anthony Richardson from Florida, they didn't do anything there, and he was like a top 5 pick. So like, why not?
Yeah.
Beck?
Right, and if I'm right about the fact that it's the offensive line that's just like the key problem here is the offensive line, and the fact that he doesn't have any fucking weapons, and the fact that goddamn Mike Bobo, like the fact that we're still throwing behind the line of goddamn scrimmage, even though it never fucking works. It's like, I don't know if that's Carson Beck going to that on the check down because he doesn't see anything with his other receivers, but it sure seems like we run that fucking 3 receiver stack to one side and then throw a screen over there, and it doesn't look like he's checking down to it. It looks like it's the fucking play call over and over and over again. So like I don't know that I can be mad at Carson for checking down to it. I think I could be mad at Mike Bobo for constantly calling it. But yeah, I mean, certainly just based on the play on the field, you've got to put Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Quinn Ewers ahead of him at the very least.
Oh, we have so much politics to talk about.
Maybe
Let's not get to draft picks.
Arguably Jalen Milroe. I mean, I don't know how Milroe grades out by any means.
Oh my
but
God. Just stop.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the CIB Pick'em game recap. We've got a real rough week for Cousin Steve. Steve goes 0 for. Had the Lions and the
Abe,
Niners.
You are laughing at Steve. You don't even know him. Jesus.
I thought I was
Must be
heading
rough
that
to
way.
be Steve.
I mean, my Saturday was a wash. I was thinking,
Yeah, you had a real rough Saturday. Steve had a real rough Saturday and followed it up with a real rough Sunday. Steve had Vandy, didn't work out. LSU, and then Oregon minus 24.5 points. Maryland kept it. I think a 22-point game or something like that. So close but no cigar there, Steve. Abe, like you said, you had a very rough Saturday, but then redeemed yourself to some extent on Sunday.
Kablam.
Getting the Bills and the Steelers correct.
By the way, I was also happy that Russell Wilson got that defensive player to
It's
jump.
10 points for you. Big difference.
That's what I'm
That takes you from a 5-point week to a 15-point week.
That's right.
You blew it on the Georgia game, which I knew when you said I got the dogs that we were in trouble. Missed on Vandy and then missed on LSU also.
I have no sense of this Georgia team. I'm always wrong about them.
No, there's no figuring this Georgia team out. Lori gets 12 points because she gets Indiana outright as a home favorite. She was right though to not attempt to take them to cover. She had Army -5.5 and South Carolina -3.5. Those were fine. We were on opposite sides of the Miami Georgia Tech game.
Yeah,
so
but I'm happy.
she loses that, and I get it. I had Alabama -2.5. I also had BYU -3.5, which is too bad for me. UCF was in a pretty good position to beat Arizona State for much of that game. They give up 2 scores at the end of the first half in like fucking 15 seconds. And then they're still in it at the end, but then they lose. UCF team is Gus Malzahn is a nightmare coach. I don't want anything to do with that guy. And then I had Mizzou over Oklahoma as my outright dog, and that worked out for me. I get 20 points this week. Abe with 15, Lori with 12, and cousin Steve with the squadouche, which brings our season totals to Steve in the caboose with 157, Lori 164, Abe with 190 points, and I am still quite clear of the field with 255.
Would this be an insurmountable lead? 65 points? I mean,
It is certainly not an insurmountable lead, Abe. At any moment, I could go over, and somebody could have a pretty decent weekend, and things are much more interesting all of a sudden.
a lot of things could happen, but it's not likely.
Jimmy Carter blows it. He got highly moralistic last Thursday
he did.
with his pick. And what happens when you bring morals into such a thing as college football? Although he tried to like hedge on the morals by saying Gundy's going to figure things out because he's such a red-ass motherfucker. And that didn't work out at all. Gundy appears to be not interested in keeping his job because that team barely showed up against TCU.
Morality clouds your judgment. You got to be very clear.
That's right. All right. You've been listening to Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports with Bob and Abe, and Lori's here too. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com for more from us. Also, the opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from Mark. Abe, any other sports-related content you would like to discuss before we get on out of here?
Yeah, I found this amusing. On the basketball front, in college basketball, number 11 Auburn, I don't know if you heard about this, Bruce Pearl's team. There was a flight that had to be grounded because teammates got into fisticuffs. They were fighting each other to the point where they actually had to ground the plane and
the flight attendants said, "We're goddamn turning this plane around."
I also heard about the University of Florida basketball coach being a fucking creep.
Yeah,
and Florida's fine with it.
Yeah, I guess there's certain. I don't know what happened there, but I guess they're fine with it. That is kind of weird.
Didn't Auburn then go on to win the game that they were traveling to anyway?
Well, fighting brings people together. I guess.
Yeah. Did you see the video of the Georgia kid celebrating with the Ole Miss people on the field after the fans stormed the field?
I heard about it. I did not actually see it.
Kirby Smart called him stupid afterwards in the press
Called him
conference.
an idiot.
I mean, that's kind of stupid. Did he explain? What was he doing?
He did. He
tried to explain.
He made a terrible Twitter apology. Riddled with typos and like malapropisms.
Not even typos. It's just bad.
Yeah.
What was
he says first and foremost, FOR most, which that's one of those where it's like like the way that people say for all intensive purposes.
Yeah.
Like people think in their minds it's intensive purposes, which because it sounds smart or something rather than intent and purpose. Right? In the same way, I think that he says first and foremost as though it's like first and like foremost.
Yeah.
Like literally,
Yeah.
it's
First thing and biggest thing.
for the most,
Yeah.
rather than a word like foremost,
It's
which
bad.
he's probably never encountered
He
in
just
his
said he
entire
ran
life.
into old friends and was happy to see them. Like, it's fine.
Oh, so that's what it was. He just stumbled upon like people he knew out of a sea of people.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of the Ole Miss people is somebody that he was like buddies with or something, and then also his family, extended
was his
family,
teacher or something.
or yeah, like old family friends wearing Ole Miss jerseys were on the field as well, so he was excited to see them. But like, yeah, you just got to run away.
Can't do that.
You can't do it on the field, man.
And then you gotta like have an adult look over your apology to make sure you don't sound like a fucking idiot like Kirby Smart said you were.
I'm
The
surprised
amount-
that they don't run it by anybody. They don't run it even by a teammate or like
They don't
somebody.
run- Well, the teammates are idiots too.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe that'd be even
Not gonna
worse.
help.
Imagine
Oh
they
yeah,
ran it by
man,
some-
looks good. Don't have a teammate look at it.
The amount of friendly like joviality and camaraderie between
Lots of hugging.
and amongst players of opposite teams is so much different than it used to be. And I think I first noticed it in baseball more than anywhere else, where like the dudes just having friendly chats at first base is not something that you would have seen 20 or 30 years ago.
Right.
And I'm certain that it has everything to do with social media and the fact that all of these dudes follow one another and they're like, you know, they're chummy, they're buds.
Yeah.
And in the SEC, it's one thing when it's like a lot of the Georgia guys know a lot of the guys on the other SEC teams that they're playing. Right? They all went to high school together. They all went to
They went to the same camps.
They went to the same football camps. They were all on different recruiting trips together. They got to know each other. But then you throw that in with the fact that they all fucking follow each other on Instagram or
Right.
TikTok or whatever. Like, I think they're just buds. And there's way more of opposing offensive linemen picking up defensive players.
Yeah.
Like, defensive players putting a hand out and picking up the running back that they just fucking tackled. Like, what are you doing? You're in a
does
60-minute
not like it.
war of attrition here where you're trying to remove the will to live from the opponent. Why are you being buddies with him? I'm fine with it afterwards.
Right.
You want to do the corny trading jerseys thing
Yeah.
at the end of the game. You want to give your guy a hug because that's your buddy from high school at the end of the game. Fine. But during the game, you should be just full of fucking hate, rage, win, win, win. Like, get the fuck out of here with the friendly dapping the other dude up.
So be more like Auburn basketball is what you're saying. Just a little more competitive, even
Yes,
with
he's
each other.
saying be more like Auburn basketball.
By
That's
the way, what
exactly
was it?
he's
Wasn't
saying.
it a Jerry Seinfeld bit? Like everybody just kind of rooting for laundry. Like we've gotten to the point. People, it's like all interchangeable. You know, one year you play for Auburn and then you transfer to like tennis. It's like who cares? Like they kind of know each other, and it doesn't mean as much as it used to. Maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, because on top of that, you've probably got dudes who are like chatting each other up about like transferring in or
Right.
going somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? It's bullshit.
We have to end this because it's almost 8:30.
Jack Del Rio had to resign.
Christ.
Jack Del Rio was hired as a Wisconsin advisor to like
Jack Del Rio, the old man or the kid?
Yeah, the old man, the guy who used to coach the Jaguars, and
Really?
and was
okay.
he was a coach for the Washington Reds football team for the last
Yeah.
couple of years as a coordinator. Got popped for DUI in Wisconsin and had to quit.
In Wisconsin, I thought that was they looked the other way over there. I thought Wisconsin.
It means it has to be really bad.
I think he ran into a
Yeah.
stop sign in a parked car and like left his car on a yard or something and then
Like
walked
it has
away.
to be egregious.
oh,
And then they found him. Then they found him wandering away from the scene. So yeah, that was me.
what
Sorry.
was he like an advisor? He didn't have like a specific.
No, he wasn't a coach, but he
Okay.
was an advisor to
Okay.
the head
Oh,
coach
there
or
you go.
something.
Cushy job gone.
Assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah. Anyway, you got anything else for us tonight, Abe?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then, and we'll talk to you next time.
Later.
I will say, if any team is benefiting from the current landscape in college football and the monster conferences that we have, it's got to be the Big Ten, because those teams aren't playing each other, or just the way that the schedule is shaking out. You've got Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana, all in the Big Ten, all in the top 5. And there's only one more game left on the schedule between those 4 teams. Indiana plays Ohio State on November 23rd. Otherwise, those teams all win out, and they're likely going to finish where they are in the top 5 at this point. And it's entirely top-heavy. There's not another team in the Big Ten that's going to challenge for a playoff spot in all likelihood at this point.
Right.
So,
but also, I mean, Oregon's a good team. Like the other ones they're due for a loss in the playoffs.
It's exciting. I will feel better about the season after next. Like either Georgia will lose and we'll be done, and I can move on to just be happy to watch the football. Or Georgia will be back in it, and I will be happy again. I don't like this week very much.
Yeah,
Tennessee will be such a fucking fraud if they somehow find a way to beat Georgia this weekend.
Sure.
And then they go to 9-1.
They're having the
They will
fans
be the
wearing
most
black.
fraudulent one-loss team in the entire fucking country. If
The fans.
that's what happens.
I fear they're going to don the black jerseys, and it will be a funeral.
What would be the worst knockout for Georgia? Like to be knocked out by Tennessee or by Tech? Like this
Tech.
seems. Tech.
It would hurt way more to beat Tennessee and then lose to Tech and then therefore not be in the playoff. We lose to Tennessee, we can just be like, all right, it wasn't our year. This team kind of sucks as it turns out. Let's see what we got next year. Is there any chance that Carson Beck comes back?
No.
He's eligible, right?
Yeah, I think because of COVID,
Yeah, he
got the
they're all
COVID
getting
exemption,
bonus years at this point. He could, like, if they lose another game and they don't make the playoff, and he's now projected to be like a 4th-round NFL
No,
pick.
I would think he would transfer.
Yeah. I wonder if that's more likely. Like if he were to come back, would he just transfer to another school for his final year?
I wonder if he goes to Kirby and he's like, I'm gone unless you fire Mike Bobo.
I don't think that he would say that.
Bring me in somebody who can, like, I've done nothing but regress under the Mike Bobo regime.
Bobo must have some compromise on all the places he goes to that he still has his job security because he's not a particularly good coordinator, but he always lands a spot. So he's not going anywhere.
Kirby has fixed things when things have needed fixing in the past.
It's true.
Will he recognize or appreciate that a thing needs to be fixed if we win out and make the playoffs and then say make it to the national semifinal or something like that?
If the Bobo offense was being run successfully, like if the balls weren't being dropped, if the offensive line was doing...
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.